Welcome again to It Doesn't Take a Genius, conversation with introspective perspectives and pithy points of view. Here are your hosts, my friends, Max and Marty.
I think that's Mark and Mike.
Yeah, whatever.
Ramsey!
Marshall, I would like to acknowledge for our YouTube viewers that we do seem to be close to the same lighting level today.
Yes.
That's exciting.
We're both equally pale.
Pale, very pale people.
Yeah, we are the palest people today. Yesterday was the first day of spring, and thank goodness, if we'd got any paler, we'd be transparent.
Right.
Yeah, I'd just be see-through at this point.
You're not wrong. Hey, I'm going to interview you today. That's what I think is about to happen.
Good thing I showed up.
I am glad you showed up. This would be pretty boring if it was me monologuing, as Syndrome says in The Incredibles, Pixar's greatest film.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
By far. Yeah.
Do you agree? Oh, you just made my day.
Oh, yeah. Definitely the top 3 movies of all time. Yeah. The kids, the character development, the middle class structure of the superhero life. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, when Brad Bird was pitching the movie, the scene where the mom puts on the Elasti-suit uniform and then kind of checks out her butt,
right?
See how things are going since after the 2 kids,
right?
That was he created that clip, showed that clip, and said, "This is the movie."
Huh.
It's about normal people with superpowers, but they're just having the same thoughts everybody else on the planet.
He nailed it, didn't he?
Yeah. And he said just based on that clip, he was able to sell the film.
Oh, he's so right. And I love, Pixar is good for this, but The Incredibles especially is not a word or note in the soundtrack wasted. Every single scene, every angle, every line of the script, it's just exactly on purpose and achieves the mission of the movie. I just love it. But hey, I'm monologuing. I'm going to stop doing that and bring us back to the interview portion of our little podcast here. We are in the middle of a series. We have I guess it's really 5 episodes, but we are covering 4 bullets about this idea of a culture that gets both relationship and results. We're getting both of those things. And so, we've got 4 things that will help you get there. We've already talked about culture trickling downhill. We've talked about starting with why. And today we're covering clarity is kindness. And the reason I'm interviewing you is because you're the one who introduced me to this phrase, clarity is kindness. I will tell you, Mike, I like immediately believed in it, kind of like our connection over Pixar. As soon as you said it, I was like, yes, that is the issue. Because I have people all the time, that will say early on in our relationship, I tried to have a Mark Ramsey meeting. I tried to be nice. And I'll say, whoa, stop right now. Because I have never once told you be nice. In fact, I'm kind of against niceness as a virtue. It's not in the Bible, like I'm a Christian and there's the whole passage in Galatians about the fruit of the Spirit, and niceness is not a fruit of the Spirit. Kindness is. So I'm a big believer in this kindness thing. Let's just start here. What's the difference between going in and having a clarifying conversation with somebody, or a clarifying meeting, even with a team, and coaching, as you and I have talked about it many times on this podcast? What's the difference?
Well, I think one of the things that we think about as we've talked about with coaching, is the fact that coaching can just be a wide open conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of our favorite coaching question is, what's on your mind?
Right.
And then we follow that up after that discussion of, and what else? And it takes us in all sorts of neat directions, and sometimes uncovers pain and obstacles and opportunities that we didn't even know existed.
Right.
With this type of conversation, it can still be a coaching style conversation, but we do have a specific topic and we do have a specific area to be addressed.
And when you say coaching style, you mean it could be a dialogue. it could be, I've got questions, you've got questions, let's talk this out.
It definitely, yeah, it should be a conversation. And so instead of a pure tell, right, we want to talk about it, get it on the table. And as one of our favorite authors and researchers, Brene Brown, talks about, she calls these tough conversations where you're talking about a topic that might not be pleasant. It might not be something that everybody's comfortable talking about it. She calls it a rumble. And so, we're going to rumble a bit. You call it wrestling.
Yes, I do.
So rumbling, wrestling, tough conversation. And I think that, the key here is it is a conversation. Even though there's a specific topic, there's something specifically that we want to put on the table and we want to address.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm reminded of Socrates. There is an ancient Greek connection. There always is, Mike. The connection here is that Socrates asked questions, lots of questions, according to Plato's dialogues that he recorded about Socrates. And people got ticked off. They were painful conversations. People would storm off, get angry. Eventually they did kill Socrates. It's, like he was executed. But the idea of, I'm asking you these questions, I'm going to this difficult area because I want you to learn. I am trying to teach. And we have, can we go ahead and say this? We have an upcoming episode. Should we mention it?
Oh, it's huge.
It's gigantic. We're going to talk to a man intimately connected with Coach John Wooden, the famous UCLA basketball coach and leadership expert. Frankly, people are still basing their leadership development on his work, and he always said that, I'm not a coach, I'm a teacher. Now, he had very difficult conversations with his team. He would, he pressed, but the whole point was, I want you to grow. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Wrestle and Grow, and I'm a big fan of these conversations, as painful as they are. So okay, you mentioned Brene Brown. Go ahead and lay it on me, Mike, because I don't know if I've actually talked to you about this, but I don't totally get Brene Brown. Like, I know everybody else does. And
nobody.
I bet I'd have a good, have a great dinner conversation with her, I'm sure, but I don't totally get her sort of vulnerability approach. But could you give us some of her wisdom on how you go about having a rumble?
Well, and I'm going to tell you too, that right, her first book is a slog.
Is it?
It's I've had people just lay on the floor crying, trying to figure out, how can I get through this next chapter? And it's some of her podcasts are easier, and her subsequent books are better. Everything in there is worthwhile. But I found myself reading it 2 or 3, 4 times, trying to figure out, what is she talking about? How does it relate to me? But so don't feel bad at all.
Okay. All right.
The other point before we jump into that is, you're the only person that I ever talked to that ever says the sentence, well, that reminds me of Socrates.
Stop.
just gonna throw that out there. And then the last thing before we dive in deeper into this is, the simplest way to think about that is that old adage, a friend will tell you what you want to hear. A great friend will tell you what you need to hear.
Yeah, I love that.
And I've heard it said, a great friend will tell you the truth.
Well, and I have to throw in, before you get going here on Brene Brown's bullet points, that there's a proverb, faithful are the wounds of a friend. And then the backside of that proverb is, but many are the kisses of an enemy. Like you could be an accidental enemy, like telling somebody just what they want to hear, being nice to them, never challenging them. And man, you might as well be an enemy. Those kisses are hurting that person. Cut them.
Oh yeah.
Cut them.
And we know where those kisses are being placed.
Right.
There's that. Yeah. afterwards, you have to go to HR, you have to watch a video, sign some
There's
papers.
a whole thing.
Yeah, it goes in your permanent record from
Right.
school. So yeah, one of the things that Brene Brown talks about is the consequences of avoiding the tough conversation, right? She calls it tapping out. So you tap out of the rumble before you get to the uncomfortable part.
Ooh, yeah.
And she talks about there's three things that are a result of that. If you tap out, diminishing trust and engagement. So if you're not telling me what I need to hear, you're not telling me the full truth even.
Oh, I see.
Then yeah, and I find out later that you had this thought about me or the situation and you didn't share it. Then yeah, what else aren't you telling me?
Right.
And that raises questions. One of the things she talks about is, and we've talked about this on our podcast, is increasing problematic behavior, and more specifically passive aggressive behavior. So if we're not talking about the as they call it, the proverbial elephant in the room,
right,
we're not talking about the important stuff, the big issues, all that good stuff, then there'll be all these meetings, or we call it the meeting after the meeting.
Yeah.
Where people are talking about the real stuff. They're just not doing it in the formal setting or in the meeting that you've called.
And probably taking it to the most negative version of that event, of that elephant possible.
Definitely. Yeah. There's nobody there to present the other side or the other point of view.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it spins into this spiral of negativity that just makes the problem worse. And then all of a sudden it goes back to that lack of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And so people aren't performing at their best, and we may not even know why, because we don't know that some of these conversations are taking place. And last, she talks about, what we always talk about with coaching, right? We're trying to maximize potential, maximize performance, and that you decrease performance. And the reason is there's a lack of clarity, and there's a lack of shared purpose. So if I'm not, we've talked about this so many times, if I'm not completely clear on where it is we're supposed to go and what I'm supposed to do to help us get there, I'm going to do some stuff. Right. I'm always doing something 24 hours a day. Every moment of my life, I'm doing something, but am I doing the thing that's most effective to get us to the goal?
Yeah.
And if there's a lack of clarity, I'll throw some efforts in different places. Might not be exactly what we need to get us there.
Yeah. And that would take a conversation, wouldn't it? Like it couldn't just be me spouting off to my direct report, like, here's where you screwed up. I need you to get back on course. That person's going to have questions about that role, that direction, that purpose. And you, at the very least, want to confirm that they understood what you were trying to say to them. So it really would have to be a conversation. You couldn't get away with this being just God forbid, just an email,
Right.
something that basic.
Well, and we talk about, one of the most common things is, people getting to work on time. And so, you tell the employee, all right, we start at 8 is when we start. It's very clear. Yeah. And if that doesn't happen, then a conversation about the why. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, okay, so what is it that happens when we're not here on time? Mm-hmm. And here is and you lay it out, walk them through, and have them even walk themselves through. Here's the whole series of unfortunate events that occur. This customer's expectation is here, and this is here, and we can't start this until this happens. And the whole system is now in a jumble, just because of that simple mistake of coming in when it's not the time that we've discussed.
And that's why these 4 bullet points for culture that gets results in relationships are kind of in order. You start with the why. That was our last episode. And hopefully that's something that's been covered so that you don't have an issue like this. But you're going to have issues like this. There are going to be these things that come up where there's a lack of clarity. Providing clarity is kindness.
Well, and you get into through a good conversation, you may uncover something. We all see the world through our own lens, our own experiences, our own lives. And I've heard managers say this, staying with our example. All right, you keep showing up about 10 minutes late. What I'd like for you to do is set your alarm clock 15 minutes earlier, and that should solve the problem. And I feel like, look at me. I'm a problem solver. That's what I do. And then, but that assumes that everything in their life is like everything in your life.
Right.
But if the person I'm talking to is a single parent and they have to drop their kid off at the daycare, but the daycare doesn't accept kids until a certain time. They won't take them before a certain time, and it's this far across town, and there's nobody else to do this. I'm one traffic light, one slow block away from being late.
Yeah.
And so even if I set my alarm clock 15 minutes earlier, as you wonderfully suggested, it would do absolutely nothing to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we know if we're clear on what we want, right, there sometimes needs to be a conversation to understand why is it not happening.
Well, I'm sort of getting a list in my head now of, a series of things you have to cover, not necessarily in this one conversation, but, have you communicated the expectation? What is it? Why is it an expectation? That what makes this an important thing? And then what don't I know? There may be more to this story, right? And I have I think I brought this up on a previous episode, but I have a client a long time ago that I worked with that they had an employee who wasn't sitting at his desk at 9 a.m. And he was also observed on the parking lot walking around on his cell phone. And what feedback he received, and it was very informal. There was nothing, nothing more than a passing mention of somebody who wasn't even his boss, but they said, hey, management team thinks you're lazy. You need to pick up the pace, find a different gear if you're going to work here. And, he literally did not even know what they were talking about because he didn't know that 9 a.m. was such a stickler point for them. Well, the guy was an internet manager. It's just possible that at a car dealership, there might have been a reason he was on the lot at 9 a.m., on his cell phone at 9 a.m. and not at his desk. It would have been a very normal thing to have happen for that role. But nobody asked him. They just told him a thing. And then, okay, message delivered, moving on. It would have been a lot better if it had been a conversation to find out what is going on here. There's got to be more to this story. You're not meeting an expectation. That was true. But what's the reason behind it?
Right. And is that expectation valid for that particular employee?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Had the same thing. I had a person and they were responding to internet inquiries. And of course, they didn't respond overnight. So in the morning, there was a ton of people waiting for answers. Well, in this particular store, all the sales team members got together and they went out and made sure all the inventory was right. And I was talking to the manager. The manager was trying to figure out how and when to fire this person, because every time he went to them and said, "Hey, we're all going out to do this," this person never participated. They weren't a team player. They weren't helping us achieve our goals. They weren't participating in some of the yucky stuff that had to be done in order to make things successful.
Right.
And he never asked him, like, so if you can't do this, what are you doing right now?
Uh-huh.
Well, there's 45 people who've asked a question about our product, and I'm trying to get them answers.
I thought.
There may not be any customers in the building, but there's a ton of customers on this interweb thing, and I think if we answered their questions, they'd come in and buy some stuff.
Dare I say?
yeah, just a crazy thought that I had. So, what looked like non-participation and was actually the completion of the ultimate task, which was to create sales. And so, the clarity of just discovering what is this person doing.
Yeah.
Right. And there again, we talked about this. People tend to assume the negative.
Right.
So the manager never thought, okay, this person refuses to participate in this team task. I'm sure they're doing something very positive and
Mhm.
inspirational for the company. Nope, that's not, yeah, that was not the thought, right? It was, he's lazy, he's worthless, he doesn't want to play, he's probably on eBay buying ceramic pigs, something non-productive is going on here.
Oh, I love it. Well, this is helpful stuff because really for me, I think it's reminding me of a whole mindset behind this conversation, which is I am here to help this person. This is not an adversary that I need to go to war with and win this argument. This is an ally. This is a teammate. This is somebody that, if I'm their manager, I'm supposed to be caring for. And so one of the ways I'm going to care for them is to have this conversation and make sure they know the expectation, understand why it's important. And then we talk through like what might be going on here to explain why they're not meeting the expectation. Maybe I need to learn, right? Maybe it's something I can do to help them meet that.
Mm-hmm. Do we have an organization that has rules and norms and mores that are no longer applicable?
Right.
And we may discover that. Yeah, everybody needs to be here at this certain time. Why?
Yeah.
What if we staggered it and did this? And some people, there's a ton of other solutions.
Great point.
And it kind of reminds me of one of the adages I talk to the leaders I work with about is that if you ultimately have to part company with somebody, we have to fire them, that person should never be surprised.
Right.
That we have had such clear and difficult conversations leading up to that if it does come to that point, when we go to have that final meeting, that we sit down and the employee looks at you and goes,
I know.
Yeah, I already packed up my stuff, because we were so clear in our expectations and giving feedback when it wasn't meeting expectations, that the person knows that, this isn't a good fit for me and for you and for the organization, and it's time to part company. But no one should ever look at you and go, I had no idea that you felt this way, or I had no idea that I wasn't perceived as part of the team, or right. That is the unkindest thing of all. To do to someone.
And if you're seeing that in your organization, this podcast is for you. This is a game changer. I guess, is that it, Mike? Is anything else you want to bring up as we wrap this up?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. And the last thing Brene Brown says is that she came across this as part of a 12-step program. And so apparently clear is kind, unclear is unkind is part of that, one of the most powerful behavioral change programs on the planet.
Right.
So I found that interesting that it's biblical in nature. It's part of 12-step. It should be part of your leadership.
Yeah. Amen to that. Humanity 101. Love it. Okay, well, with that being said, a man who has given both of us clarity on many occasions, kindly. I mean, mostly kindly, okay, anyway, John Wolf, take it away.
Yeah, love that guy.
So go ahead and tweet that, or share it any other way you want. As always, there are no rights reserved, no trademarks, no copyrights. Share it if you want to. And join us next time on It Doesn't Take a Genius.
That's good enough.